I knew something was wrong the moment I heard my wife whisper another man's name in her sleep. It wasn't a moan, not a dream mumble, not a slip of the tongue. It was a soft, intimate exhale spoken like a confession she didn't know she was giving. A name I recognized immediately. Evan. Her boss. I jolted upright, heart banging so violently it felt like it was trying to break through my ribs. The room was dark, but not silent, not anymore. My pulse was loud enough to drown out everything else. She shifted beside me, turned slightly, her hand unconsciously reaching toward the empty air between us. My throat closed. I stared at her, searching for an explanation that didn't exist, clinging to a hope that had started dissolving the second the name slipped from her lips. The clock glowed 2:17 a.m. I didn't sleep again. The next morning was too bright, sunlight flooding the kitchen, bouncing off polished counters, illuminating the smallest details. A crumb from last night's toast, a water ring on the marble, her smile. Her damn smile. "Morning," she said, leaning up to kiss me, her lips soft and familiar, her breath warm with coffee. It felt like force-feeding myself someone else's life. I let her kiss me, though, habit, routine, denial all braided together. "You're quiet," she added as she turned to rinse her mug. Water ran in a gentle stream, sparkling. Innocent. Everything looked innocent if you didn't stare too long. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked, my voice too casual, too thin. She shrugged. "Yeah, fine. You?" I watched her shoulders. Smooth, relaxed. No tension. No guilt I could detect. "Yeah," I lied. Just a name in her sleep, I reminded myself. Could be nothing. But the way she had said it. No. Not nothing. I tried to focus on my coffee, but her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it quickly, much too quickly, then flipped it face down. A small thing. A red flag, barely visible. My stomach tightened. She grabbed her purse. "I have an early meeting with Evan, so I'll be home late tonight. Don't wait for me for dinner, okay?" The words dropped like rocks. "Since when do you have early meetings with him?" I asked. She blinked. "Since always. He's my boss, Mark." I hated how easily she said his name. Normal. Casual. As if it didn't mean anything. But last night, in her sleep, it meant something. Her tone carried no obvious deception, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside her had shifted months ago, and I just hadn't noticed, or hadn't wanted to. She kissed my cheek and left with a bright, practiced smile. The door clicked shut. The silence left behind was not peaceful. It was suffocating. I tried to go about my day. Tried to focus on work, emails, spreadsheets, numbers that blurred into meaninglessness, but the image of her lips forming his name haunted every moment. By noon, I was pacing the living room, my hands restless, my pulse unsteady. I wasn't paranoid. I knew what paranoia felt like. This wasn't it. This was intuition clawing up from the depths, intuition sharpened by small moments I had ignored. Her late nights. Her sudden need for space. Her phone always angled away. And now, that whisper. I sank onto the couch, pressing my palms into my eyes. What if I'm imagining things? What if I'm the problem? What if? The doorbell rang. I jerked upright, startled. No one ever visited unannounced. When I opened the door, I froze. It was Claire, one of my wife's co-workers. Young, nervous, always soft-spoken. Today, she looked pale and tense, clutching her purse strap like it was keeping her upright. "Mark, hey," she said. "Can I, talk to you? Just for a minute." A cold wave rushed through me. The kind that warns you your life is about to split in two. "Sure," I said, though every part of me screamed not to. She stepped inside, eyes darting around like someone afraid of being followed. I gestured to the couch. She remained standing. "I feel awful doing this," she began. "But I think you deserve to know some things." My stomach dropped. "About what?" I asked, already knowing. Her breath shook. About your wife. And Evan." My hands balled so tight my nails cut into my palms. "Claire," I said slowly, "just tell me." She swallowed. "They've been spending a lot of time together. And not just work time. Late nights. Weekends. And she's different around him. I don't want to assume anything, but she exhaled shakily. I overheard something yesterday. My pulse hammered against my throat. What did you hear? She hesitated, eyes full of pity. I hated it. Pity was confirmation. Your wife told him she thinks she might be pregnant, Claire whispered. And she told him she wasn't sure how to tell you. The room spun. For a moment I didn't hear anything. Not her, not the hum of the fridge, not my own breathing. Everything went silent except for the pounding in my skull. Pregnant. 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 My wife was pregnant. With another man's child. She said she needed more time, Claire continued, but Evan told her to. She winced. He told her to figure out a way to convince you that the baby is yours. Or that you'd adopt it. Adopt. Their child. I swallowed air like it had turned to smoke. That's all I know, Claire whispered. I'm so sorry. I barely managed a nod. She left quickly, wiping her eyes. When the door closed behind her, something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. A soft, quiet break, like hairline fractures appearing across glass, invisible until the whole pane shatters. Pregnant. She was pregnant. And trying to figure out how to make me raise his child. My chest constricted, heat rushing up my neck, flooding my face. The betrayal was so raw, so colossal, I couldn't process it all at once. It hit in waves, shock, denial, anger, heartbreak, disbelief. Each one stacking on top of the last like a tower ready to collapse. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. I wanted to curl into myself and disappear. Instead, I sat down slowly, burying my face in my hands. Why? Why would she do this to me? To us? I thought of our wedding vows. The late-night talks. Our dreams of starting a family. The name we had picked for our future daughter. None of it meant anything now. A cold dread settled into my bones as another thought slithered in. She hadn't told me she was pregnant. Because she was still figuring out her story. Still plotting how to deliver the lie. Still choosing which pieces of me she would break gently and which she would let shatter. I wiped my eyes with my palms, trembling. I needed the truth. Not whispers. Not suspicions. Not half-told fragments from a coworker. The truth, from her mouth. I stood abruptly, snatching my keys from the hook. I wasn't the type to confront without proof. I wasn't reckless. But there was nothing sane left in me to protect. I drove to her office. The building loomed ahead, glass and steel rising like a monument to ambition and ego. I parked in the visitor's lot, gripping the steering wheel until it creaked under my fingers. Her car was there. His was, too. Inside the lobby, the air smelled like cologne, printer ink, and the stale tension that clung to corporate spaces. I forced myself to walk calmly, though adrenaline made my steps uneven. The receptionist, Mia, blinked when she saw me. "Hi, Mark," she said, voice warm but uneasy. "Are you here to see your wife?" "She told me she had a meeting with Evan," I said evenly. "Is she in his office?" Mia hesitated. That tiny pause confirmed more than any words could. Yes," she said. But she asked not to be disturbed. My jaw tightened. "Please let her know her husband is here." Mia typed something, waited, then frowned at her screen. "She's not replying. She doesn't want to see me." My pulse thudded painfully. "Is anyone else in the meeting?" I asked. Again, the hesitation. And no, just the two of them. Of course it was. The building suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too complicit. I walked toward Evan's office. Mia didn't stop me. The hallway was lined with glass walls, transparent boxes hiding opaque lives. I passed a few employees who avoided eye contact, as if sensing the storm building inside me. When I reached Evan's door, I stopped. Soft voices inside. Hers, tired, anxious. His, low, coaxing. I couldn't make out the words. My hand hovered over the handle. For a second, I considered turning away, collecting myself, confronting her at home like a rational man. But rationality had left the building hours ago. I pushed the door open. Hard. The door slammed against the wall as I stepped inside. They jumped apart. My wife's eyes flew wide, fear, guilt, and disbelief flickering across her face so fast they blurred together. Evan straightened, jaw tightening, his expression shifting into something defensive, almost annoyed. The room smelled like her perfume. The blinds were half drawn. A coffee mug sat beside her on the table, his jacket draped over her chair. She stood abruptly. "Mark, what are you doing here?" Her voice trembled. I stared at her stomach before I could stop myself. She noticed. Her breath stuttered. And in that split moment, her silence told me everything. Everything. My voice came out rough, shredded. "Are you pregnant?" Her face drained of color. Evan stepped forward. "Mark, this isn't." I cut him off with a glare so sharp he froze. My wife shook her head, tears rising. "Mark, I was going to tell you. I just..." "How long?" I whispered. "How long has this been happening?" She collapsed into the chair like her legs gave out. Her hands covered her mouth, and her shoulders shook. Evan spoke instead, his tone infuriatingly calm. "Look, I know this is a shock." I snapped. "You don't get to speak to me," I growled. "Not one word." He shut up. My wife's eyes met mine. Broken. Trapped. Guilty. "Please," she whispered. "Can we talk alone?" I stared at her, the woman I loved, the woman I trusted with every fragile part of myself, the woman who whispered another man's name in her sleep. And something inside me hollowed out completely. "We'll talk," I said. "But not here." I turned and walked out, the ground tilting beneath me. Behind me, I heard her choke back a sob. The drive home felt like passing through fog. The city's edges blurred into smeared lights, and I held the steering wheel as if it were a lifeline. My hands were slick with sweat, though the air conditioning hummed cold and indifferent. Every red light was a small verdict. Every fast-moving shadow a rehearsed excuse rehearsed in my head. I had rehearsed how I would confront her, how I would demand answers, how I would break if she begged for forgiveness. None of those rehearsals prepared me for how small her apartment felt when I finally stepped inside. She closed the door behind us like you close a book you're not ready to finish. She sat on the couch, knees together like a child waiting for punishment. The apartment smelled of lemon cleaner and last night's laundry, an ordinary mix that now tasted like betrayal. "I didn't want to," she started, then stopped. Her voice was thin, frayed. "You didn't want to tell me." I finished for her. "You didn't want to tell me you'd been sleeping with your boss? You didn't want to tell me he might be the father of your baby?" She flinched. "It isn't like that, Mark. It's complicated." Everything about the way she said it made me want to dismantle her sentence piece by piece, to extract the truth like a splinter. But my voice, when I used it, came out quieter than I expected. "Complicated how?" She swallowed hard. We started seeing each other months ago. It happened slowly." She pressed her hands to her face and let out a sound that could have been a laugh or a sob. "I thought it would stop. I thought it was a mistake. I never meant to hurt you." The words were familiar, worn smooth by the mouths that had said them 1,000 times in 1,000 different rooms. They should have meant something. They didn't. "Why?" I asked instead. "Why him?" She looked at the coffee table, as if the answer might be tucked beneath a magazine. "Because he listened. Do you remember when you used to stay up with me until midnight talking about work? Now you leave at 6. You come home and you're tired. You're kind and you're reliable, but sometimes I felt invisible. Evan." He said things I wanted to hear. Heat rose in my chest, the furious, childish part of me that wanted to strike something. Instead I sat opposite her and watched the way she folded in on herself. Her hands trembled. "You could have told me," I said. "We could have gone to counseling. We promised." "I know." Her head bowed. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Silence swelled and settled between us like dust. "Did you tell him you were pregnant?" I asked finally, a cruel precision to it. The question landed like a thrown stone. It skipped, it sank. She hesitated, eyes wet. I told him I thought I might be. I took a test 2 days ago. It was faint but positive. I was scared. Scared of what? The unknown? My reaction? The truth? The last felt the most dangerous. You didn't tell me because you were scared of my reaction. I said, voice strangled. Or because you wanted him to decide what would happen. She flinched again. Evan told me it would be better if you considered the baby yours. He said it would be easier for everyone if you adopted. He promised he would take care of everything at work so no one would find out. He said he would support us. The words hit like a shove. Adopt. The notion was absurd and obscene and strangely intimate, asking me to take up a life that was not mine, to love a child born of an affair while the father stayed untouchable in the wings. You expected me to just accept that. I felt ridiculous asking the question, like asking if the sun plans to rise. He said you might, she whispered. He said you still love me, that you'd want what's best for our family. He said you'd want to protect the baby. Evan's name was a wound. The man who had listened, who had promised, was now the architect of a plan to bind me to his secret. Was I supposed to be grateful? The rational part of me, calm, dull, practical, ran quick calculations. There would be legal steps, DNA tests, paternity exams, the messy machinery of truth. But the emotional machinery was more brutal. Could I bring myself to raise a child that bore the mark of his betrayal? Would that child feel like a living reminder of what had been stolen from me? Or could I disentangle the child from its origins and see it as a small person deserving of love? Before I could answer, she looked at me with an urgency that made my chest hurt. Mark, please. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose what we had. Evan. He says he'll help. He says he won't be in the picture. He asked me to ask you first. You expect me to play ghost father? The word tasted bitter. No, she reached for my hand, desperate and clumsy. Her palm was warm. I want us to be a family. I want our life back. I want, she choked. Please. Just talk to me. Don't leave. Her plea was a knife with two edges. I wanted to help her, to salvage the scaffolding of our shared years. But the scaffolding had been secretly repurposed to support another scaffolding. The thought of holding something built on lies made my hands tremble. You asked me to raise someone else's child while letting the father remain hidden. I said slowly, that's not love. That's complicity. She flinched as if struck. It's not like that. I love you, Mark, I do. I love you. But people make mistakes. People make mistakes, I repeated, and the room echoed. So we keep them secret? We live a life stitched together from half-truths and figments of other men's promises. She opened her mouth, closed it, then forced out, it was never supposed to go this far. Was anything supposed to go that far? The neatness of intention mattered less than the jagged reality of consequence. I felt a sudden, ridiculous urge to call Evan, to stand in front of him and count the number of teeth in his mouth, to see whether he looked ashamed. Instead, I went upstairs and pulled the folded hospital receipt from the junk drawer. An old thing left from when I'd had a minor surgery years ago. The crinkled paper suddenly looked like proof that the world was orderly, numbers on a page that could be counted and accounted for. My need for facts was frantic. When I returned to the couch, she was curled inward, small and vulnerable. She looked up at me with pleading eyes, the kind that could disarm anyone who had not already been broken by betrayal. Tell me what you want, she said. For a long time I didn't answer. The question was too broad, too impossible. What did I want? Reprieve? Punishment? To feel the hurt so deeply it would be clean? To be loved again? To be righteously indignant? To be forgiven? The list was endless and contradictory. What do you want? I finally asked, because if she could ask, I could ask too. She closed her eyes, let out a breath that shook. I want you. I want our home. Maybe I'm selfish, but I don't want to lose the life I imagined with you. I thought, maybe if you had a reason to stay. A reason to stay. How transactional intimacy became. How love could be weaponized into a demand. You want me to raise this child as proof? My voice cracked. Proof that we are a family. She opened her eyes. I want us to be a family. I'll tell the story. I'll say it was a shock. I'll tell people we decided together. If you want, we can have tests done, paternity tests, whatever. I'll be honest with the baby. Her words tumbled, frantic. I'll do anything. Please. I thought of the life we had planned, the house with the creaky floorboard, the picnic blanket with wine stains, the name we had settled on and then abandoned in favor of something less presumptuous. I thought about the empty nursery closet in our bedroom, the one I had painted myself to surprise her. I had already filled the space with hope. Now that space felt like a stage set for a lie. The clock ticked. It sounded like a countdown. You expect me to accept a child whose father you hid from me. I whispered. How will I look at it? How will I look at you? She flinched, as if my questions had physical weight. She tried to reach for me again but stopped, like she was afraid of my reaction. I don't know, she said finally, but I can't bear the thought of losing you. There was an honesty in her voice now that had been missing in the office, no longer the polished defense but naked fear. It undid me and then hardened me at the same time. You need to make a choice, I said, feeling the clarity come like a blade. Either you tell me everything, the truth about how long, every detail, and you commit to being transparent going forward. Or you tell him to step up. You force him into being the man he claims to be. You can't have both ways. She looked as if I had offered her a map in a storm, or else a shovel to bury us both. He promised, she said. Promises aren't enough, I said. I want evidence. I want boundaries. And I want time. Time. The word felt cowardly and necessary at the same time. We both understood what it would mean. Tests, lawyers, separations, the most excruciating kind of waiting. She stood abruptly, pacing now, her hands clenching into fists. He says he'll disappear if you want. He says he wants us to keep our life. He said he will pay for anything. He said, I cut in. Evan's hypothetical was a presence in the room like an invisible hand writing rules I would be forced to follow. Then ask him, I said. Make him come here. Face me. Tell him I want him to take responsibility, or I will. Legally, morally, whatever it is. She stared at me as if the light had shifted and revealed a different country. You do that. I would do what's necessary, I answered. I will not be complicit in a lie. She sank back down onto the couch, hand at her mouth. If you make him take responsibility, he'll ruin everything for me. He'll expose us, he'll take away everything. And if I accept his child without him, I said slowly, I become the man living a lie. I live in a house with a woman who loved another man while I pretended to be the father. I'll sleep beside a ghost. She looked stricken. Please, Mark. Don't make it about him. I wanted to make it about him. I wanted to make him accountable for the hollow promise he sold us. But as long as my wife asked me not to, my anger fractured into confusion and longing. Outside, the night deepened. The city lights blinked like a jury waiting for a verdict. I need days, I said finally, the words feeling like a treaty. Not forever. Days to think, to talk to a lawyer, to get a test. I'm not promising anything more than that. She let out a breath, a sound that might have been relief. Days, she echoed. Yes. She reached for me with trembling fingers and took my hand. It felt fragile, and I held it like a man afraid to crush glass. When I left that night, the streetlights seemed colder. I drove without a plan, only the rhythmic beat of the windshield wipers keeping me company. My heart was a burnt-out house. Lots of rooms, everything charred, but still standing. I thought about the child inside her, a small anonymous life that would not choose its parents. I thought about the future, of hospital rooms and false smiles and the constant, gnawing question, can love built on deception ever be genuine? When I finally stopped the car, I didn't know what I had decided. I only knew the map of my next moves. Tests, a conversation with Evan, perhaps a lawyer, certainly sleepless nights. The choices before me felt less like options and more like traps. Choose wrong and the pieces of us would scatter beyond repair. Inside, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Be reasonable. Don't make this worse for yourselves. No signature. No sender. My stomach clenched. Someone else was already pulling strings. I looked up at the sky, which offered no guidance, just the indifferent smear of stars. There was no neat ending, only the slow turning of a wheel. And somewhere between that turning and the place where we'd once stood together, I realized the worst part. Even if I did everything right, asked for DNA, confronted the father, demanded truth, there would be no perfect solution. There would only be consequences, and they all would hurt. I wondered which hurt would be more bearable, the slow erosion of love or its sudden, shattering end. The answer was not yet clear. The next morning, I woke with the weight of someone else's life pressing against my lungs. The unknown number's message, be reasonable. Don't make this worse for yourselves, rattled through my head like a coin in an empty can. The sender didn't matter, not really. Cowardice always looks the same through a screen. But the timing? The intent? Those mattered. Someone wanted to keep me quiet. Someone wanted this whole thing to stay manageable. For them. I dragged myself out of bed, made coffee I barely tasted, and stared at the mug like it might offer prophecy. My reflection in the dark liquid was haunted, eyes ringed with sleeplessness, jaw tight with the tension of decisions I wasn't ready to make. I needed air. Outside, the morning was crisp, the sky cold and lightless. My breath rose in small white puffs. I walked until my feet hurt, until the tightness in my chest loosened enough to let thoughts in. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my wife. Wife, can we talk? Please? I can come over. The ache in my ribs pulsed. I typed back. Me, not yet. I'm thinking. She didn't reply. Good. I needed to face the next step alone. Evan. The thought was a hard stop, like hitting a brick wall at full speed. He had been the ghost in my marriage, the quiet presence in her phone, the whisper in her sleep. But now, after last night, he was no longer a ghost. He was a man who made suggestions behind closed doors, who whispered solutions into my wife's ear, who thought he had the right to script the future of my life. No. This morning, I would speak to him. Not to scream. Not to fight. To end this. The confrontation. His office building was quieter on weekends, only security guards, stray employees, and people with too much money or too little life. The guard at the front desk recognized me from yesterday and nodded me through without question. My feet carried me up the elevator, each floor ding like a countdown to combustion. The hallway leading to Evan's office was still, sterile, peaceful in the way only expensive places can be. His door was cracked open. I didn't knock. He looked up from his desk, startled but attempting composure, like a man who suddenly realizes the poker game he's been cheating at is about to end. Mark, he said, standing. I wasn't expecting. Don't say my name, I cut in. You don't get to use it. He froze. Good. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me. The air between us was thick. Heavy. Not violent. Worse. Controlled. You texted me last night, I said, staring directly into him. Or had someone else text me. Doesn't matter. You wanted me to be reasonable. Let's talk about that. He swallowed. Look, I know this situation is complicated, but making it bigger won't help anyone. Especially not her. Her. The word hit something deep inside me. My wife. Not yours. He tensed. Look, Mark. Stop. My voice broke like a branch. Not from anger, from exhaustion. You slept with her. You got her pregnant. You told her to ask me to raise the baby. And now you want me to stay quiet. So let's skip the bullshit. His jaw clenched. I never forced anything. She came to me. A small part of me died hearing him say it. I don't care who started it. My voice steadied. I care about how it ends. He sat down slowly, as if realizing he wasn't the one orchestrating the conversation anymore. I stood across from him, hands shaking at my sides. There are two paths, I said. First, you take responsibility. Publicly or privately, I don't care which. You don't get to hide behind her. You don't get to make her beg me to raise your child while you stay safe and clean. And the second path? He asked, cautious, calculating. I take everything you've done to the legal system, I said. DNA tests. HR reports. Everything. Your career doesn't scare me. Your money doesn't scare me. And if I have to burn my life to the foundation to expose you, I will. His eyes hardened. You'd ruin her career too. The breath left my lungs. He said it casually, like a threat he thought I'd swallow. That's what you're betting on, I said softly. That I'll sacrifice myself to protect her, and by extension, protect you. He didn't answer. I didn't need him to. You don't love her, I said. That's obvious. You wanted her. You took her. And now you want out without consequences. And you want me to help you do it. He opened his mouth, closed it. Don't contact me again, I said. And don't contact her about me again. Whatever happens next will be my decision. I turned toward the door, then paused. And one more thing, I added without looking back. If you ever pressure her again, if you ever try to manipulate her into hiding this, you won't like how this ends. The silence behind me was thick, heavy, afraid. Good. I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. The truth. When I got home, my wife was sitting on the curb near the driveway, hugging her knees, eyes swollen from crying. She stood when she saw me, then hesitated, as if waiting for permission to move closer. Can I come in? She asked, small. I nodded once. Inside, the house felt cold, unfinished. Like a shell. She stood in the middle of the living room, fingers twisting in front of her. She looked fragile and brave at the same time. Did you talk to him? She asked. Yes. She swallowed. And he's exactly who I thought he was. Her eyes closed briefly, a tremor running through her. Mark. I don't know who to be right now, she whispered. I don't know how to fix this. But I want to try. I want the truth. Everything. Ask me anything. I'll tell you. It wasn't a plea. It was surrender. Not to me. To her own guilt. I walked past her and sat down at the table. She followed slowly. How long? I asked. She didn't blink. 8 months. The number punched through me. 8 months. 8 months of someone else's hands, someone else's words, someone else's kisses. 8 months of secrets. Did you love him? My voice almost broke. No, she said instantly. I thought I did for a moment. But it wasn't love. It was escape. It was feeling wanted. It was selfish and stupid. But it wasn't love. Tears streaked down her face. I let her cry. Not because I forgave her. Because I needed to hear the raw truth, stripped of excuses. The night I found out I was pregnant, she continued, voice trembling, I panicked. I didn't know whose it was. I still don't. I thought if you accepted the baby, if you wanted it, maybe we could survive this. I inhaled sharply. You wanted to use the baby as glue. She bowed her head. Yes. I'm sorry. I was desperate. I sat with that. Let it settle. What do you want now? I asked. She met my eyes, and there was something like resolve there, a fragile backbone forming. I want honesty. I want to face consequences. I want to do the tests. I want to take responsibility. And I want to try, if you'll let me, to rebuild us. Rebuild. The word hung between us like a bridge with missing planks. What if the baby is his? I asked. Her breath shook. Then I'll raise it alone. Or we'll co-parent separately. I won't ask you to be the father. And if it's mine? Her voice cracked. Then I hope maybe we can heal. Heal? Heal? The word felt foreign. Soft, impossible. And yet, a small part of me still remembered our beginning. Our first date. Our 6-month anniversary in the rain. The morning she told me she wanted children with me. The way she whispered my name once, long ago, like it meant something sacred. But that memory was faint now. The new one, Her whispering even in her sleep was louder. Too loud. The decision. The pregnancy test sat on the table between us. I had asked her to bring it. She placed it down gently, like an offering. Tomorrow, I said. We go to the doctor. We confirm everything. Then we do a DNA test as soon as it's possible. She nodded. Yes. But before that, I said, my voice turning sharp, I'm moving out. Her hand flew to her mouth. Mark. I need space, I said. Real space. Not a night at a hotel. I need air to think, and you need time to understand what your choices have done. I'm not leaving forever. I'm choosing distance, not divorce. Not yet. Her knees buckled and she sank onto the chair like a puppet whose strings had snapped. She sobbed quietly, not begging, not protesting, just breaking. I stood. Where will you go? She asked through tears. My brother's, I said. He already said I could stay. The lie slipped out cleanly. I didn't want her to know I had nowhere certain to go. Not yet. I grabbed a bag, packed only essentials. She watched me with a devastation so complete I almost faltered. At the door, she whispered, Mark, please don't stop loving me. The pain in her voice was sharp enough to draw blood. I didn't answer. Love wasn't the question anymore. Love wasn't enough. The twist. I drove until the sky dimmed and my thoughts blurred. At a stoplight, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Without thinking, I answered. A voice I didn't expect spoke. Mark, it's Claire. I straightened. Claire? What's wrong? Her voice trembled. I didn't know who else to call. Something happened. At work. With Evan. My heart hammered. What happened? She inhaled shakily. He resigned. Effective immediately. HR escorted him out. There's an investigation. Someone submitted emails. Messages. Photos. Everything. Ice shot through my veins. Who submitted them? I asked. Another shaky breath. I don't know, she said. But, Mark, your wife doesn't know yet. Someone just nuked Evan's whole career. All evidence of the affair is out. My chest tightened. If it wasn't me, and it wasn't her, then who? A quiet click echoed in my mind, as if a lock had turned somewhere deep inside. Someone wanted to burn the lies away. Someone wanted the truth exposed. And someone thought I needed to know. Mark, Claire whispered, voice thready with dread, there's something else. What? There were messages from him. To someone else. Another coworker. Explicit. Ongoing. He wasn't just with your wife. Silence. A long, awful silence. It hit me like a blow. My wife wasn't the only one he'd lied to. She wasn't his only escape. She wasn't special. She was one of many. And that truth, that cold, humiliating truth, hit harder than the betrayal itself. Because now, the child inside her might not just be a product of an affair. It might be a product of a man who never cared about her at all. A man who used her as easily as he used everyone else. The world tilted. Mark. Claire said faintly. Are you still there? I closed my eyes. Yes. What are you going to do? I let out a breath that felt like the beginning of something new. I'm going to tell her the truth, I said quietly. Not to punish. Not to shame. But because she deserved to know what kind of man she had broken her life for. And because maybe the real betrayal was larger than both of us. Maybe the story wasn't just about infidelity, but about the lies she believed, the lies he sold, and the truth that would force all of us to face who we truly were. I hung up, then turned the car around, driving not toward reconciliation, and not toward revenge, but toward the one truth we had left to uncover. Who we would become after the lies burned away.